The Grand Hall of the Galactic Council was packed with alien representatives from all corners of the galaxy. Every species was there, from the towering, multi-eyed Glorians to the small, lizard-like Kythians. They had gathered for a special meeting, and rumors had spread about the reason. Whispers filled the air as the human ambassador, Mark Wallace, stood confidently in the center. He was calm, collected, and ready to deliver a message that would shock the entire galaxy. The humans had always been known for their boldness, but no one could have predicted what was about to happen. Ambassador Wallace cleared his throat, and the hall fell silent. Members of the Galactic Council, he began, his voice steady, on behalf of Earth and humanity, we officially claim the right to mate with any alien species in the galaxy. For a moment, there was complete silence. Then, the room erupted in laughter. Representatives from various species couldn't contain themselves. The idea seemed absurd. The Glorian representative, towering above the rest, let out a booming laugh, his tentacles waving in amusement. Humans have truly lost their minds. He bellowed, "Do you really think you can mate with species as different as us?" The Kythians hissed in agreement, their reptilian tongues flicking in disbelief. The insect-like Xeric ambassador clicked its mandibles, signaling confusion. "What do humans hope to gain from this?" it asked. Ambassador Wallace remained calm, letting the laughter and questions die down before continuing. "This is not about dominance," he explained. "This is about unity. Humanity believes that by forming deeper connections with other species, we can bring about true peace in the galaxy. It's not just about biology. It's about understanding and cooperation." The laughter faded, replaced by murmurs of curiosity. Some of the representatives were beginning to see that the humans weren't joking, but still, many were skeptical. The Varnock ambassador, a tall, thin creature with blue skin and sharp horns, stood up and glared at Wallace. "Humans think too highly of themselves," it sneered. "What makes you believe other species would even consider such an idea? We are too different. Our biology, our cultures, there's no way this could work." Wallace smiled slightly. "Humans have a long history of adapting to new environments and challenges. We've learned from the many species we've encountered, and we believe that with time and cooperation, anything is possible. We've already studied the biology of many species present here, and we are confident that compatibility is more likely than you think." A ripple of surprise went through the room. The idea that humans had been quietly studying alien biology raised eyebrows. Some began to wonder if the humans knew more than they were letting on. The council leader, an ancient being with glowing eyes and a calm demeanor, raised its hand to silence the murmurs. "This is indeed a bold claim," it said, its voice echoing through the hall. "But boldness alone does not make it practical. Why should we entertain this idea? Ambassador Wallace, what benefit do you offer to the galaxy by making such a claim?" Wallace stood tall, meeting the council leader's gaze. "The benefit is a future where all species are united, not just through treaties and alliances, but through real, personal connections. We believe that by opening up the possibility of such unions, we can break down the barriers that divide us. Imagine a galaxy where differences are not just tolerated but celebrated, where the offspring of different species carry the strengths of both. This is the future humanity envisions." The hall fell silent again, but this time the laughter was gone. Instead, there was a tension in the air, as if everyone was holding their breath. Some aliens were still doubtful, but others were starting to think. Could humans really bring about such a change? Could the future of the galaxy be as interconnected as Wallace described? As the meeting ended, one thing was clear. The humans had planted a seed of curiosity. Whether the galaxy would accept or reject their claim was still uncertain, but the conversation had begun, and there was no turning back. The news of humanity's bold claim spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Alien species everywhere were talking about it, from the technologically advanced Xerics to the peaceful Varen. Some called it madness, others called it arrogance. But everyone was curious. Could humans really do what they said? Could they form intimate connections with species so vastly different from themselves? The Galactic Council, still divided, decided that this claim needed to be tested. Several prominent alien species came forward, eager to see if the humans could back up their words. The Xeric, known for their sharp intelligence and insect-like appearance, offered to conduct the first set of tests. A grand laboratory was set up on a neutral planet. Scientists from various alien civilizations gathered to witness what they believed would be humanity's failure. They had prepared a series of challenges designed to push human adaptability to its limits. The alien representatives stood in the observation room, watching with anticipation. Ambassador Mark Wallace arrived with a team of human volunteers, each one trained in diplomacy, biology, and interspecies relations. They walked into the lab with confident expressions, their steps steady despite the pressure. The aliens, watching closely, whispered among themselves, "Could these humans really be so sure of their success?" The first test was simple: biological compatibility. The Xeric scientists carefully introduced a human volunteer to a controlled environment containing genetic samples from several alien species. The goal was to see if human cells could interact positively with alien DNA. Many species believed this would be impossible. After all, how could two entirely different forms of life be compatible? The Xeric lead scientist, clicking its mandibles, started the process. Alien representatives leaned forward in anticipation, waiting for the inevitable failure. But as the results started coming in, the room grew quiet. The human cells were not only surviving but also adapting to the alien samples. Slowly but surely, the human genetic material showed signs of compatibility with species that were once thought impossible. Surprise spread through the crowd. The Verena ambassador, with its smooth blue skin and gentle demeanor, was the first to speak. This is remarkable. I did not think it could be done." The Varnock ambassador, who had been the most vocal against humanity in the last council meeting, crossed its arms in disbelief. "This is just one test. It proves nothing. The real challenge will be communication and cultural differences. Humans might be able to adapt biologically, but they cannot possibly understand the complexities of our ways of life." The second phase of the tests began. This time, it was focused on cultural interaction. Different alien species brought forward their most complex traditions, hoping to stump the humans. From intricate Xeric rituals involving sound and light to the delicate telepathic exchanges of the Fornay, the challenges seemed impossible for a species that had only recently joined the galactic stage. But the human volunteers approached each challenge with curiosity and respect. They asked questions, listened carefully, and in some cases even impressed the aliens by picking up on cultural nuances that took centuries to develop. One human, in particular, was able to perfectly mirror a complicated Varan ceremonial dance, much to the astonishment of the watching crowd. Ambassador Wallace observed it all with a quiet smile. He had expected resistance, but he had also believed in humanity's ability to rise to any challenge. Humans had always been adaptable, capable of learning and growing in ways that surprised even themselves. By the end of the tests, many of the alien scientists were left speechless. The humans had passed every trial, not flawlessly, but with enough skill to prove their worth. Some of the species who had been the harshest critics were now considering the possibility that humans might not be as foolish as they first thought. But not everyone was convinced. The Varnock ambassador still looked unimpressed, its sharp eyes narrowing at Wallace. "You've proven your adaptability," it said coldly, "but this does not mean the galaxy will accept your claim. You've only begun to scratch the surface." Wallace nodded, unfazed by the skepticism. "We know this is just the beginning. But now, the galaxy has seen that humans can adapt, learn, and grow. That is how we've survived on Earth, and that is how we will continue to survive in this galaxy." The tests were over, but the debate was far from finished. The galaxy had seen what humans were capable of, but whether they would accept humanity's claim was a question still hanging in the air. After the tests, the galaxy was buzzing with mixed opinions. Some alien species were amazed at the humans' adaptability, while others remained doubtful. But there was no denying one thing. Humans had proven they were not to be underestimated. Yet the real challenge was still ahead. Could humans truly form deep, personal bonds with alien species, beyond tests and science? The answer came sooner than anyone expected. A few weeks after the tests, an unexpected announcement was made by the Verin ambassador, Illyra. The Verin were a peaceful, highly advanced species known for their deep emotional connections. They were also one of the species most interested in humanity's bold claim. Illyra's message sent shockwaves through the Galactic Council. "I have chosen to explore a union with a human," Illyra declared during a live broadcast. "Ambassador Wallace and I will embark on this journey together." The galaxy was stunned. This was no ordinary announcement. It was the first formal union between a human and an alien representative. It was a step beyond anything the Council had expected, and it signaled that some species were willing to take humanity's claim seriously. The news spread like wildfire. Different species reacted in different ways. The Varnoks were outraged, calling it a mockery of tradition. The Kythians, always curious, were fascinated and wanted to observe. The Xerics, ever practical, saw it as an experiment worth watching closely. But for humanity, this was a major step forward. Ambassador Mark Wallace was calm during the interviews that followed. When asked why he agreed to the union, he replied, "This is about proving that different species can share more than just trees and technology. It's about building real connections that transcend biological differences. I believe Illyra, and I can set an example for others." The union ceremony was planned on a neutral world, one known for its breathtaking beauty. Alien representatives from all over the galaxy attended, eager to witness this historic moment. The event took place in a garden filled with glowing alien flowers that shimmered under the soft light of two suns. It was a peaceful, almost surreal setting, fitting for something as unique as this. Illyra, dressed in traditional Verin robes, stood beside Wallace, who wore a formal human uniform. They exchanged symbolic gestures, each of the other's cultural tradition. For the Verin, it was a gentle touch of foreheads, a sign of deep emotional connection. For humans, it was a handshake, symbolizing trust and partnership. As the ceremony continued, observers from different species watched closely. Some were skeptical, thinking this was just a publicity stunt, but others saw something deeper. Illyra and Wallace were not just going through motions, they were genuinely trying to understand each other, to bridge the gap between their species. After the ceremony, the reactions were mixed. Some aliens left unimpressed, still clinging to their doubts, but others stayed intrigued by what they had witnessed. The idea of interspecies unions, once laughed at, now seemed less impossible. If a human and a Verin could find common ground, perhaps other species could as well. Back on Earth, people celebrated the event as a major victory for humanity. The news channels broadcasted the ceremony to millions, and social media exploded with discussions about what this union could mean for the future. Could this be the beginning of a new era of cooperation between species? But not everyone was celebrating. The Varnok ambassador, who had opposed humanity from the start, made a harsh statement. "This is just one small step," it said, its voice filled with disdain. "It proves nothing. The galaxy will not change overnight because of a single union." Yet, despite the criticism, there was no denying that history had been made. The first union between a human and an alien had taken place, and the galaxy was watching closely. For Ambassador Wallace and Illyra, this was only the beginning of their journey. They knew that their union was more than just a symbol. It was a test of humanity's ability to truly integrate with the galaxy, and they were determined to show that it was possible. The news of the first union between a human and an alien spread throughout the galaxy. While some species were curious or even excited by the possibilities, there were others who reacted with anger and fear. For them, the idea of humans claiming the right to mate with any alien species was not only strange, but a threat to their way of life. The strongest resistance came from the Varnok, a warrior race known for their strict traditions and powerful military. The Varnok believed in purity and separation between species, considering it a sign of strength. To them, the union between Ambassador Mark Wallace and the Verin ambassador, Illyra, was an insult. It challenged everything they held sacred. The Varnok ambassador, Krall, called for an emergency meeting of the Galactic Council. His voice was filled with rage as he stood before the council members, many of whom were still divided on the issue. "This union is a disgrace," Krall declared, his sharp teeth gleaming under the council chamber's lights. Humans have overstepped their bounds. They are a young species, and yet they dare to challenge the traditions of the galaxy. Ambassador Wallace sat calmly, listening to Krall's outburst. He had expected resistance, especially from the Varnock, but he remained confident. Beside him, Illyra looked equally composed, her soft blue skin radiating calm despite the tension in the room. Krall wasn't done. The Varnock people will never accept this, he continued, slamming his fist on the table. We will not allow our culture to be tainted by human influence, and if other species in this council are wise, they will stand with us against this madness. Several council members murmured in agreement. The more traditional species, like the Yalkor and the Shirini, shared the Varnock's views. They feared that allowing humans to form unions with aliens could disrupt the delicate balance of the galaxy. The Yalkor, with their strict caste system, saw the idea of interspecies unions as a dangerous precedent. If one species started to mix with another, where would it end? Ambassador Wallace stood up, his face calm but determined. Ambassador Krall, he began, his voice steady, we understand your concerns. Humanity is not here to destroy traditions. We are here to build bridges, to find common ground where others see division. The union between myself and Illyra is not about power or control. It's about understanding and cooperation. Krall narrowed his eyes, his muscles tensing with barely contained anger. Cooperation. What do humans know of our ways? You think a single union will change the galaxy. You are playing with forces you do not understand. Illyra spoke next, her voice soft but firm. Ambassador Krall, this union is not about erasing traditions. It is about expanding them. The Varin people believe that emotions and connections can cross species boundaries. We seek unity, not division. Humanity has shown they are capable of learning and adapting. Why should we fear growth? Krall's glare hardened. Because it's not growth, it's weakness. The galaxy has survived for millennia by maintaining order, by respecting the boundaries between species. You want to tear that apart. The council chamber fell silent. Krall's words carried weight, and many of the more conservative species nodded in agreement. But there were others who seemed to be swayed by Wallace and Illyra's argument. They saw the potential in this new path, a future where different species could work together more closely than ever before. Despite Krall's fiery speech, the vote was called. The council would decide whether to officially recognize the union between Wallace and Illyra, and more importantly, whether to allow humanity's claim of interspecies unions to move forward. As the vote proceeded, it became clear that the council was deeply divided. Some species supported the Varnock, standing firmly against the idea of humans forming unions with aliens. Others, more open-minded, saw the potential for progress and change. The result was a narrow split, with no clear majority on either side. Krall, unsatisfied with the outcome, stormed out of the chamber, declaring that the Varnock would not stand idly by. This is not over, he shouted, his voice echoing through the hall. If the council will not protect tradition, then we will take matters into our own hands. Ambassador Wallace and Illyra exchanged a look. They knew the resistance would not end here. The Varnock were powerful, and their influence could spark further conflict. But they were also determined. This union was more than a political statement. It was a symbol of what was possible, and they would continue to push forward, no matter the resistance. The council chamber remained in a tense silence after Ambassador Krall's dramatic exit. His words lingered in the air, leaving a sense of uncertainty among the members. The Varnock were not a species to make empty threats, and everyone knew that. Krall's declaration of resistance sent a clear message. Either the galaxy would uphold traditional boundaries, or the Varnock would take action. Ambassador Wallace and Illyra left the council meeting with heavy hearts. They had known from the beginning that change wouldn't come easily, but the deep division among the council was more than they had anticipated. Back on Earth, the situation was just as complicated. Humanity had watched the council proceedings closely, and the reactions were mixed. Many humans saw the union between Wallace and Illyra as a bold step forward, proof that humanity could lead the galaxy into a new era of unity. Others, however, were concerned about the growing tension with the Varnock and their allies. As the days passed, the galaxy found itself at a crossroads. Would the different species choose to come together, inspired by the example set by Wallace and Elira? Or would the fear of change push them toward conflict? The Varnock, true to their word, began mobilizing their fleets. Reports came in from across the galaxy. Varnock warships were gathering near the neutral zones, their intentions unclear but unmistakably hostile. The Galactic Council was on edge. A formal declaration of war had not been made, but the threat was evident. Ambassador Wallace found himself in a difficult position. He had become a symbol of humanity's claim, but now he had to manage the growing fear of war. Elira, standing by his side, remained calm, her people offering their full support. Yet even the Viren, known for their peace-loving nature, were beginning to worry. "We can't let this turn into a war," Wallace said during a private meeting with his closest advisors. "That's not what this was about. This was supposed to unite us, not tear the galaxy apart." One of his advisors, a seasoned diplomat named Sarah, spoke up. "The Varnock are pushing hard, but not everyone is with them. There are still species who want peace, who see the potential in what you and Elira are doing. We need to rally those voices." Elira nodded in agreement. "The council is split, but we must find common ground. If we can show them that unity is stronger than fear, we might be able to avoid a full-scale conflict." Wallace knew they were right, but the path ahead was uncertain. The Varnock were not just loud, they were influential. Many species respected their strength, and their call for tradition resonated deeply with those who feared change. But Wallace also knew that humanity had a way of turning challenges into opportunities. They had done it before, and they could do it again. As tensions grew, Wallace and Elira made a bold decision. They would travel to the heart of Varnock space and meet with Krall personally. It was a dangerous move, but they believed that if they could speak directly with the Varnock leader, they might be able to find a peaceful resolution. Their journey was met with skepticism. Many in the council thought it was a suicide mission, that Krall would never agree to meet peacefully. But Wallace and Elira were determined. This was not just about their union anymore. It was about the future of the galaxy. When they arrived at the Varnock homeworld, they were greeted by an imposing sight. The Varnock capital was a fortress, surrounded by towering walls and massive ships. It was clear that the Varnock took their security seriously. Krall himself met them at the entrance to his palace, his expression cold and unwelcoming. "You're brave to come here," he said, his voice filled with suspicion. "But bravery won't change my mind." Wallace stepped forward, meeting Krall's gaze. "We didn't come here to change your mind, Krall. We came here to show you that there's another way. War doesn't have to be the answer." Krall snorted, unimpressed. "You think words will stop a war. The galaxy is not that simple." Elira spoke next, her voice calm and steady. "We understand your fear, Krall. Change is never easy, but the galaxy is changing, whether we want it to or not. This union isn't about humans claiming dominance. It's about finding a way to coexist, to share more than just resources." For a moment, Krall remained silent, his eyes studying the two ambassadors. The tension in the air was thick, and the future of the galaxy seemed to hang on a knife's edge. Would Krall listen, or would he push the galaxy into war? The answer was still unclear, but one thing was certain. The fate of the galaxy now rested on the choices made in the coming days.